ladies and gentlemen, Mama Champa and Mama Burun were the commanders of the female regiment of soldiers called the Zufar platoon, or the Glorious Battalion, of the Nizam of Hyderabad in the India of 1800s. The courtesan, Ma Lakabai of the same period, was a foremost poet of her age, was respected for her wisdom, and elevated to the Nizam's Council of Advisors. Begum Hazrat Mahal and the Rani of Jhansi fought in the War of Independence against the British in 1857, and Razia Sultana was a leading general and ruled Delhi as early as the 13th century India, which forms a major part of South Asia today. Ladies and gentlemen, these are facts of history of the South Asia region, where women were involved in armed conflicts and were given a role in decision-making. Governing smaller states perhaps was simpler, and battles were fought mainly to extend power and territory and control resources, where with the signal of his hand, the ruler of a state would raise an army of women when required, or include a capable woman in his council of advisors. In today's world, governing states and fighting battles is far more complex, where the rationale of a conflict is beyond control of power, territory, and resources. South Asia has its share both of interstate and intrastate conflicts. Whether internal or cross-border, however, the conflicts in South Asia also have an international dimension. The Taliban were bred and nurtured during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and some conflicts are legacies from the colonial period, like Kashmir. Currently, ladies and gentlemen, more than 2/3 of the world's poorest countries are in conflict, and most of these conflicts tend to be within the state itself. The end of the Cold War in 1989 has shifted the theater of war to the developing and underdeveloped world. South Asia is no exception. Ladies and gentlemen, new cadres and new technologies have added new dimensions to the war zones, which therefore need innovative measures to prevent conflicts or mitigate them. New cadres of non-state actors, as also mentioned by the learned professor, such as warlords, rebels, mercenaries, mafias, and child soldiers have entered the conflict zones, as opposed to previous interstate conflicts, where two well-trained national military forces were pitched against each other, where the rules of battle were somewhat well-defined and understood by both sides. Conflicts within a state tend to be prolonged and disorderly, afflicting up to 90% civilians, and resulting in a huge number of refugees and internally displaced persons. While entire communities suffer the consequences of armed conflict and terrorism, we all know that women and girls are particularly affected because of their status in society and their gender. Ladies and gentlemen, women at each phase of the conflict, pre-conflict, during the conflict, and post-conflict, have a unique set of issues which need to be addressed. To place into context, it is imperative to understand the key factors which contribute to the conflict turning into an armed one. Factors, as we all know, can be both internal and external. In South Asia, amongst the internal factors are ideological differences which can be based on religious beliefs or sectarian differences, as in Pakistan, India, and Sri Lanka. beliefs in different political and economic systems, as in Nepal, or for ethnic reasons, as in Bhutan and Sri Lanka. And, as mentioned by the professor, also due to caste reasons. Added to these, ladies and gentlemen, are structural causes which aggravate a conflict: the absence of human security and security in the country or the region, poor governance, corruption, abuse of power, unequal access to resources, which all countries of our South Asian region unfortunately suffer from. External factors add to this, like foreign funding, both overt and covert, either to governments of the countries involved or to non-state actors, or to both. Foreign interference in internal conflicts, unsettled territorial disputes, all lead to armed conflicts. Ladies and gentlemen, the most important factor, however, which turns any conflict into an armed one is access to arms, both through government-to-government sales and by illegal weapons trafficking. It is reported that developing nations continue to be the primary focus of foreign arms sales by weapon suppliers. During the years 2003 to 2010, the value of arms transfer agreements with developing nations comprised almost 73% of all such agreements worldwide.